We're making stuffed cabbages today with lamb and pork. Leaves are washed. I'm going to plunge them in some hot water, boiling water that is slightly salted. So our Napa leaves are blanched. Now let's work on the filling. So 1 teaspoon of black pepper, a teaspoon of fennel, a teaspoon of coriander, and 1 allspice berry, which is this one. I'm going to toast it and then grind it up and put it in here. When I'm grinding, I'm also going to add 2 bay leaves, but I'm not going to toast the bay leaves. So I'm going to toast it now. You can start to smell the spices, and that tells you that the spices are ready. We're also going to add some ground chilies here. So I'm going to add some of that to this, about, I would say, depending on how hot you like it, but a teaspoon. Okay, now these have cooled sufficiently. I'm going to grind it up in a spice grinder or a coffee grinder. Alright, so we just put spices in the pork and lamb. And now we need to add a little bit of grated onion. So I would say about a quarter onion, maybe a little bit more for a pound of meat. You can chop it. It would taste great. But grating it actually, it gives you a lot of onion juice. And that is really going to flavor the meat really well. So in goes the onion. Just a little bit of onion, we'll just quick slice. Alright, onions are in. Next, a little bit of garlic. You can use regular garlic, and I would just chop that really finely or use a microplane and shave that in or grate that in. Or I don't have any regular garlic right now, but I do have green garlic, so I can't grate this, but what I can do is pound it in a mortar and pestle. Where you're mortaring, you want a little pinch of salt, which will help to break down whatever you're pounding. Herbs, onions. This will take a minute. Alright, so we got our pounded green garlic in here. That goes in. You are also going to need some acid in this. Usually we have like an open bottle of white wine, but oftentimes we don't. And when you don't, you can use other things like pickling liquid. And we always have pickling liquid in the fridge. So I'm going to add a little bit of this vinegar, pickling liquid, and just wash out my mortar and pestle so that I get all that good garlicky-ness in here. Next, we need some herbs. So here I have some mint. Mint and lamb goes really well together. I'm sure you know that. We have some Chinese celery. I have some anise hyssop here, which is anisey, so licoricey tasting. It also goes really well with lamb. I'm going to strip the mint, and you're going to keep the stems. We're going to use the stems in a bit. Give it a rough chop. We're going to add 1 egg to this. We're going to have to trim some of this Napa, like that. So the bases we save, and they're going to go into the cabbage roll. Just gonna... Okay, there's one other thing that is really important to this filling, and that's rice. This is about 1/3 of a cup of rice and a touch more, like a mounded 1/3 of a cup. Okay, so we're just gonna mix the rice in. Alright, so now we're going to start filling. You can fill them in this way, or you can do it horizontally and make a longer roll. Either way is fine. We'll start the first one this way. I like to start with the base of the cabbage towards you and put the filling there, so you end up with the nice bright tips of the cabbage at the end. So I'm rolling and then tucking in the left and the right. Voila, that's your cabbage roll. One thing you do want to make sure of is that you want to make sure they're the same sort of thickness, all your rolls, so that they'll sort of cook evenly. Alright, so we're about to put this in the oven. Before you do, remember we saved some stems from the herbs? Well, we're gonna put them in here because that's flavor. I have these green garlic leaves that we shall not waste. They'll go in. Tuck them in. It's easier if you do this ahead of time and put the cabbages on top. Okay. And then I made a little mushroom broth here while we were prepping. This is not seasoned, and I will season this very lightly. You want some salt in here in the braising liquid, so that you're not drawing out all the salt in your cabbage bundles. Now you want the liquid to be about 3/4 up the sides of the cabbage rolls because the rice is going to absorb a lot of this liquid. Alright, so that's almost to the top, but not quite. I like some tomato product in this. It doesn't really, whatever you have. I happen to have some marinara sauce here, so I will spoon some of that in. Okay, this is ready for the oven. It takes about an hour to an hour and a half to make sure everything's really tender. What you're trying to do is you're slow cooking the meat so that it's nice and silky and soft. We're starting at 400 degrees in the oven, and then about 20-30 minutes later we'll turn it back down to about 350. Alright, so these are pretty much done, and the way you can tell, it's been about an hour. I stick a knife into each roll, and you can feel how easily the knife comes out. There's this bigger one here that definitely has slightly more resistance, but it's pretty good actually. It's I would say that's done, but I would probably let that cook for a little bit longer, maybe 5-10 more minutes. You can have this with some lentils, that'll be delicious. Beans would be great. A side of seltzes would be delicious. I suggest serving it with some sour cream or yogurt, with a little bit of broth, and kind of, swirl that yogurt into the sauce as you're eating it. And having a side of salad would be a very nice dinner. And I think 2 to 3 per person is plenty for dinner. So there, Napa cabbage rolls.